Hey everyone, welcome to Rise 8's live stream. I'm Brian Kroger, CEO of Rise 8, and along with my co-host Eric Whitman, Senior Platform Engineer at Rise 8, we'll be talking to Josh Marcuse about accelerating change in public sector with some focus on AI. Josh is the Director of Strategic Initiatives at Google Public Sector. He leads a team of public sector digital transformation experts who work to solve real problems for public health, smart cities, cyber defense, and more for governments around the world. Now, previously, Josh served as executive director for the Defense Innovation Board, a group of distinguished leaders focused on bringing technological innovations of Silicon Valley to the Department of Defense. Josh also served as the innovation advisors to the DoD CTO, held roles in OSD for policy, personnel, and readiness, and the chief management officer. Prior to DoD, Josh worked at the Center for Strategic International Studies, Booz Allen Hamilton, and the Council on Foreign Relations. He's very active in several nonprofit organizations. Quite frankly, don't know how he does it all. That includes serving as an advisor or board member to Schmidt Futures, Tech Talent Project, Silicon Valley Defense Group, globally, Young Professionals in Foreign Policy, and one of my favorites, DEF. Defense Entrepreneurs Forum. He's also a term member on the Council of Foreign Relations and a fellow of the Truman National Security Project. But for me, more personal, I met Josh during my time at Kessel Run when he was serving on the Defense Innovation Board. I like to say he's a bit of an unsung hero, unless you've listened to me. I sing his praises all the time. Of that Kessel Run story, right? He led the Defense Innovation Board to be such a strong ally that helped us at some of our most critical junctures and critical periods in our journey. Now, last year, I had him speak at Prodacity Symposium, and if you haven't checked out his talk, it is a must-see. He's one of the best orators that I know, especially in this space, and he delivered a great plenary talk with no slides and no notes, and it just blew everyone away. So head over to rise8.us/events/Prodacity. You can check out last year's videos and sign up for updates for 2023. Josh, did I miss
Brian, I'm going to be as red as your logo in 5 more seconds. I actually agreed to do this talk with you just so that I could hear you give that intro. That makes me feel like I'm 10 feet tall. So thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being with us. Eric, do you want to start us out with the first question?
For sure. Thanks, Brian, and thanks, Josh, for joining us. Talking about that speech at Prodacity, it got me really hyped and in the mindset for it for those couple days. So kind of looking back at it, you had mentioned that nothing is going to accelerate change faster than the spread of AI in our society to include warfare. So in your opinion, what is the most important thing for the public sector to change so that we don't miss the boat on AI or any other similar future capabilities?
That's a great question, Eric. Thanks. And I'm glad we're starting with that. I mean, obviously, AI has been grabbing the headlines every day, and it's really captured popular imagination, in the last few news cycles in a way that it hasn't before. And I think that's really important. We want everyone in our society to be talking about these technologies and the way these technologies are going to transform the way we interact with each other, the way we do our jobs, everything that we do, and understand the positives of them and all the benefits of them, and also understand the risks. And I think it's really important that we're having that discussion. And the government, the public sector, has a crucial role to play in guiding the development of these technologies and promoting their use and preparing our workforce to be able to compete and succeed in these areas and to think through these things. And so I think it's really important that we understand the role. In my view, the role of the public sector is to encourage and promote and accelerate the adoption of new technologies that are going to make us a healthier, happier, safer society. And that's critical. But it isn't easy. And it isn't easy because it requires a lot of changes in the paradigms that have worked for decades that just don't work anymore. And so the way we think about rulemaking and regulation and all the things that have really made for almost a century the government the protector of the interests of the people You think about, 100 years ago, all of the legislation that was passed to keep our drinking water safe, keep our air safe, keep our food safe. All of these regulation models, paradigms, just don't apply to data and AI in the same way. So when we see public sector leaders trying to apply some of those very well-intentioned mental models to the tech industry, they just end up with suboptimal outcomes. They just don't end up in the place where they want to be to achieve the goals they want. We want our democracy to be strong. We want people to be able to trust the things that they read on the internet. We want people to be able to use tools that make their lives better but are free from bias. And we want them to be fair. And I think those are all laudable goals. We all want those things. But just the level of understanding of the nuance of how these technologies are built and implemented is something we don't always see. And so I think, that adaptation of those models is a really important thing for public sector to understand. And the second thing that I think is incredibly important is also just this frustration that I experience talking to a lot of government leaders, which is they keep talking about artificial intelligence as something that's coming, right? It's an emerging technology. It's the future. It's going to change this or that, or it's going to disrupt this or that. And they keep talking about it like it's something that's coming. And the truth is, it is here. It's everywhere. It's in every device in our homes. It's in our pockets. It's in every consumer tool and application that we use. It's how we get around, in Uber and Lyft. It's how we stay in an Airbnb. Like we go decide where we want to shop and what we want to eat and where we want to go based on recommendations that we're receiving. We figure out where we are and how to get where we're going by using Google Maps. I mean, it is just ubiquitous. And the cognitive dissonance between how ubiquitous machine learning is baked into all of our consumer experiences and how largely absent it is from our interactions with our government is just making all citizens feel like government doesn't have it right. And we talked a little bit about this, and I talk in terms of a trust deficit and a confidence deficit in our government, but it is that cognitive dissonance that's really frustrating. And, Brian and I met in our work in DoD, and so I often think about things from my DoD experience. And my experience when I was in DoD and now that I'm trying to support DoD is the sense that, because the technology is new to us, it's new to the world. And we need to test it and evaluate it and assess it as if it were new. Because new things are dangerous and they're trying to protect themselves and protect us. But it's actually not the case that these technologies are new. They're actually in production at a global scale everywhere, all over the world. I mean, one of my favorite examples is people don't really understand how search works, but the way Google search works, which is the product and the technology that has, billions and billions of users, and it's what people associate Google with, it doesn't just make it easy for someone to search for something, in a big white plain page. To deliver those search results, there are thousands of machine learning models that are running in the background, constantly indexing the internet, starting in Asia. As the world turns, we're indexing what's going on in the world, literally as the earth rotates, in order to have the calculations sort of, chase the news so that we can predict what we think customers are going to ask about. And we can validate that information is accurate in advance. And we're pre-positioning data literally around the world in the topology of our global network of our data centers in order to make sure that we have that sub-millisecond latency experience of accurate search results, prioritized search results. And to do that, it is driven by AI. And Google's leading the vanguard and frontier in AI because that was our business model of delivering that incredible experience. And so when you talk about, a public sector leader talking about how AI is coming, but they're learning about it by searching for it on Google, it's just, the irony is just overpowering. So I think that's a really important thing. It's just, you have to understand, like, there are use cases that are emergent. Like everything that's happening today with generative AI is people are living and breathing and experiencing the excitement of using a technology that is truly new and they're seeing, it makes mistakes. It says things that are funny or unpredicted or they are not right. And like they're doing the beta test at global scale. And that is an exciting experience for everyone to be part of. But, for every generative AI model that's new and experimental, right, there's thousands of things that just happen seamlessly in the background that are mature, that are robust, that are tested all the time. So that's what I want the public to stop pretending that AI is not already here. It's here. And the sooner that it's used to make people's experience of interacting with the government so seamless, that would be incredible. Like imagine a world in which every government agency that you come to has the information that it needs to answer your question at that moment. Instead of filling out your name and date of birth on form after form after form, like what if you could tell the government your name and date of birth once, they could verify and validate you are who you say you are, and then it just knows about you what it knows about you. It's not like the government has the data, it's just locked away in filing cabinets. And so like it's not a privacy violation to have the government efficiently share what the data it already has to make the user experience for the citizen frictionless. It should be simple and easy. Like I just bought a car and a house this year. Oh my God, those are such painful experiences. And so much of that is not driven by the consumer industry. It's driven by all the interactions that the government has put in place with those interfaces with the industry to protect us as citizens and consumers. And so I would just love to make those processes, delightful and efficient and easy for people. I think that's totally attainable. Like we can totally do this right now.
Yeah, that sounds like a nice view of the future. I think a lot of us would be happy about that. I really liked your point on, I think we just need to really shift our paradigm and models for new technologies coming in. They're not new. They're already here. Industry's already been using them. So how do we shift our mindset for that? Definitely is good food for thought. Brian?
Yeah, I think, one thing you said in there is you talked about your DoD experience and you often use that as a lens. I know I personally have been surprised by the number of things that I've seen from the other side where, it's even been humbling at times to realize how wrong I was about some of the things that seemed so right or so easy when I lacked the industry perspective, right? Setting up agile acquisitions and contract vehicles and all of those things. I thought I understood industry, but I had no idea, right? What have you seen in going from, DoD to Google that surprised or humbled you?
Sure. What a great question. Well, let me start by saying, as magical as it has been to experience a company like Google, which is really eye-opening, is such a steep learning curve. I've just been learning so much. I have to say, I also every day miss the camaraderie and purpose of public service. And I do miss it. We are supporting public sector customers is exclusively what I do. I don't do any commercial business. All we do is help government leaders. And obviously I do get a lot of satisfaction from that. And I can't imagine, being any further away from the mission than I am. But even that, just knowing, when they leave our office and they go back to the Pentagon or they go back to the White House or they go back to the halls of Congress or they go back to wherever they're going to, they're just surrounded by people who've all taken that oath and they're just all committed. And one of the things that's been hard for me at Google is as supportive as we are of the public sector, I do just have so much admiration for the public servants that are just in the grind day in and day out. So something that's humbling for me is just always reminding myself of the sacrifices that they are making, and not just people in uniform, Brian, like you did, they're away from their family or they're risking their safety or those things, but even the GS-14 that is just dealing with the friction and the bureaucracy and the frustrations, earning less than they could perhaps, and just devoted, right? And I always talk to my teams about my experience in government and just having reverence for them, because of course, we're trying to do a deal and it slips from month to month to month, and we're like, oh my God, how could this take any longer? And they just don't get it. And it's easy for us to experience the same frustrations that the change agent on the inside experiences. But I always remind them, I said, you can't change a system that you don't love.
Mhm.
You know, you can't, if all you're experiencing is frustration with the government, like go to a different business, like go sell in a different segment of the market. Like the people in the public sector market have to remember, like we're here because we have a part to play in the way our government transforms, and you have to love your customer and you have to love the mission. And by the way, you're not going to sell anything if they don't authentically believe you, right? Like they also want to buy technology from people they believe are mission driven. So that's one of the things that, that's ingrained upon me. But on the other side of the equation, the things that are humbling is, one of the things that was really hard for me when I got to Google was like all of the decisions are data driven. Like there's like real-time analytic dashboards for everything. Nobody makes slides from the data. You're just in a meeting, you just pull up the actual data and it changes during the meeting. If someone makes a sale, and it'll update right there, and you'll just see it like, oh, like someone just sold something, that number went up. And so, a lot of my experience in government, I didn't realize it as much at the time, but I realized looking back, a lot of the decisions we made was essentially like an evidence-free zone. With a lot of deference to seniority, a lot of trying to find consensus of opinions, but the opinions were not necessarily really data driven, or if it was data driven, maybe there was just such an amount of latency in that data that it just wasn't really accurate. And so, I think coming to a private sector, it's really dawned on me what it's like to be in an organization that just, is going back to the data again and again for every decision and measuring everything. I mean, the amount of minutia that is measurable, and that having all those measurements automated is incredible. So you'd be in a meeting and leaders can ask pretty much any question, and someone can use our tools to answer that data-driven question. Overnight. How long is it taking our customers to move from one workload to their second workload, or what proportion of your revenue is coming from new sales versus expansions, or which products are resonating with which customers, or how fast does it take a customer to get to this threshold, or how fast does it take a seller to get to this threshold? Or one of my favorites was the interviewing. Like how many times have I recommended a candidate that has been hired, and then how well did that candidate perform? I mean, they can rate me as an interviewer in terms of how accurate are my intuitive predictions about how successful someone will be. And am I an easy grader? Am I a hard grader? Am I, what's my bias? I mean, it's just incredibly impressive how much you can instrument your whole organization, and use it for security also. Who's accessing which files from which locations, and multi-factor authentication. I mean, it's just the use of data is incredible, and I like fantasize what that looks like for government to have that mindset and also that capability. And then another piece of it as well that I think is really important is how human-centered private sector is about employees. I mean, they really think about employee productivity as being a driver of strategic value. And so if you internalize that message, not so much as a, mission first, people always, bumper sticker, but more of a sense of like, this is a really precious, scarce, expensive asset. I want to get the most utilization out of that, the most impact out of that. So like, what can I do to automate everything that is toil, so they spend all of their time on cleverness and creativity or on productivity? And so building tools and systems designed to optimize the user experience of every employee, because that's good for the business, is just mind-boggling to live in that environment. I mean, it's not that we don't have systems with friction, we don't have inefficiency and all the things that every organization does, but it's really clear how much thought and effort goes into saying like, how many clicks can I remove from the process of approving this purchase order, right? Or how many helpful reminders can I send? Or how can I, have that reminder pop up in the right place at the right time? I mean, it's just so much thought goes into that. And I think that is really impressive. And, it's just, again, government values its people in a way that's very inspiring, but at the same time, they also don't value their time. Like they value the humans, but they don't value their time. So labor is incredibly fungible. So, like a system doesn't work, like that's okay. Like we'll just throw people to just, just move the data from column A to column B by hand. Like that's fine. We it's very difficult to acquire new technology, but it's very easy to just move people to just, figure it out on their own. And, I that is a big change, very humbling. And the last thing I would say as well, which is super interesting, is, there's an enormous similarity between Google and DoD that people don't appreciate. I mean, these are massive organizations. They're, n squared number of stakeholders. They actually operate by consensus, both of them. And, they have global missions, are huge. And, both of them really need to collaborate. Everything I did in government was super collaborative, all of it. But collaboration in government is incredibly hard and really clunky. Hundreds of emails, right, to get one thing done. Or I remember I worked on one project where, we had to coordinate, 80 proposals across the joint staff. So we get thousands of comments in our comment resolution matrices, right? And we would have to respond to every comment. It's all being done by hand, right? Everything being done by hand. And Workspace, Gmail, we call it Workspace, or our collaboration suite is the software the Google culture runs on. So, Workspace was built by Googlers for Googlers, not for email, but to have a sort of a software instantiation of our innovation and collaboration. And so, like, the way that the founders wanted Googlers to think and work together is expressed in how the collaboration suite works. And the moment you start using it, the people's behaviors change. I take people from another company or right out of government, and like as they climb the learning curve of using the Workspace features, their behavior changes to fall in line with that collaborative and innovative behavior. And it's my favorite product at Google, and it's my favorite product to introduce people in government to, because it is an instantaneous way to adopt that innovative collaborative mindset. And it's amazing. Anyway, so I think those are the main things that struck me.
I think that last one is super interesting, because there's we talk a lot about how culture drives process, drives tools, technology, right? And there's always been this age-old fascination when you look at like Toyota manufacturing, and when American manufacturing was trying to copy them, they would try to copy their tools without realizing that there were culture and processes baked into those tools. Like the tools didn't create the success, the culture and the process did. The tools were just a manifestation of that. But I think it has really interesting implications for technology that government is buying, because like you said, when you then take that fully formed tool and put somebody into that environment, it implies certain processes and cultures. And I think your ability to adopt the tool on the one hand is dependent on your ability to then adopt those processes in that culture. So sometimes when we don't get good adoption, it's actually the result of that. The other thing is you could be inadvertently taking on processes and culture that you don't agree with, or are maybe even antithetical to your mission when you talk about some of the bad technology providers that might be out there. So I think it's so fascinating.
Totally. You have lots of other questions. I don't want to drain this issue, but I do think that I have changed my point of view on that issue you're describing about culture. Like, I can see the path dependency of the government behaviors based on the tools they use. Mm-hmm. I can just see it. And you take those very same people and you drop them into our environment where it's not a small subset of people using these tools, but it's everyone using it. You just sort of watch them kind of get it. And now they're chat and there's ping and it's right in the calendar and they're dropping comments in the docs. And like, so you snap your fingers and like, there's never version control errors ever again. Like everything is shared. Like I drop something into a chat. It says, oh, this document is not shared with these people. Would you like to share it? I'm like, yes. And then like, they get it, right? And like, how much time do we spend doing, staff packages? And you're doing the staff package. You have 3 systems. You have to update the status of the package in the system and say, I've uploaded it. And then you got to email the person and be like, hey, I updated it in the system. And then they download it and they make their edits. They have to upload it. And you're just like, thousands of people across the government spending their time trying to figure out which changes are the most recent changes. It's like thousands of hours. And like all of that could be spent on higher level cognition with the click of a button. So it makes it easy to be an evangelist for wanting more adoption of Workspace in government. And like, It's not so much a sale. It's more like, my heart is with you, public servant. You deserve the best stuff.
I love it.
Yeah, I think I heard what's ingrained in anybody with an SRE background's mind, measure what matters. So I thought that was a really interesting tidbit on how Google does that for the whole employee user experience too, not just focusing on their external products. I think we kind of want to shift gears a little bit back to, what you talked about at Prodacity, and I think we mentioned it a bit at the beginning of this talk, and that's about public trust of the government and their services. How do you see capability providers like us, so Google and Rise8, what role do we play in building back that trust, and how can we respond to any unwillingness for that innovation that we face if at the end of the day we're not the ones that come in and make the highest level of decisions?
Yeah. I mean, it's not up to us to make the decisions, I mean, we have to support their leadership. And by the way, I mean, there's never been a time that I can recall where there were more visionaries in digital transformation in government than today. I mean, we just had CIOs, from all across DoD come visit us, and to hear them talk about what they want to do and what they see in their vision. I mean, they are looking over the horizon, and that wasn't true when I was in government a decade ago. We were getting there towards the end. I left like almost 3 years ago, but in the last 3 years, it's a game changer. So it's not really about telling them what they need to do. They know what they need to do, but it is about helping them get there. And that's our mission. And our mission is to bring the power of Google to the mission of government and help them solve the problems they want to solve. And like, sometimes it is a question of, offering them a bit more audacity about what they can do. And there are people that are resistant to change. I mean, probably, majority in a lot of these agencies are people that don't share that vision that a small minority of innovators have. But I've definitely changed my strategy over the years. I mean, I used to really think about trying to design for scale from the beginning. And now I think about designing for early adopters. I mean, like, it takes so much energy to fight people that they don't want to move, when there's so much work to do to help the people that are eager to move. So like, we just focus on the people that are eager to make change. And I spent a lot of time thinking about the innovation adoption curve and Everett Rogers' work, and how do you move from early adopter to early majority? And so for me, the organizational change theory that resonates with me is just like finding the tipping point in every organization and building towards a tipping point. And then once you hit that tipping point, the gravity of the organization takes over. And you don't have to put forward the effort to spread the new system into every corner of the organization, right? I mean, the organization starts to change on its own. You're using the inertia towards change instead of the inertia towards resisting change. So the focus is find the early adopters, find Kessel Run, right? Find Brian, basically. Find the Brian of 2023. And the organization like Kessel Run, and help them create proof of success and proof of efficiency, proof of mission outcome, and help them move through that. And so I think in the past, when we wanted to design systems at scale, we designed systems where scale was a necessary precursor for getting any value. And now it's flipped. Now we design systems to create some initial increment of value, and they gracefully scale. So like an aircraft carrier, right? There is no scaled down version of that. Right? To get the first jet off the deck of the aircraft carrier, you have to build the whole aircraft carrier. So when you're designing an aircraft carrier, nuclear submarine, or something massive, you're designing for scale from the moment you start. And those are these big bang theories of change that are like the ERPs of the 90s that just fail over and over and over again. And I think instead, it's a much more of an agile approach of like, how do we deliver a little bit of value that can turn into a lot over time, and make it. We want to make the scaling frictionless rather than making the scaling a precondition of success.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds like a solid strategy. I mean, let's focus on the early adopters, people that aren't unwilling to change. And And great point about the scalability mindset. I think we do have a few more questions, but I think we want to leave just maybe one more here that we'll shift to, and then I think we might have one or two from the audience here.
Great.
So there's one specifically about GCP. I think, GCP is kind of coming later into the whole federal compliance arena in the public sector. What are some things that GCP is doing differently that you think really sets them apart from, other cloud providers?
Yeah. I mean, mostly in business, we talk about first mover advantages, but I also think that there's pretty significant advantages to being able to learn from all the things that have come before you and then to design differently. And so the way Google approached our successful bid for the Joint Warfighting Cloud Capability contract and IL5 was had two main features that differentiated it from other approaches. The first was we have a software-defined GovCloud. We don't have a physically defined GovCloud. We have a software-defined GovCloud. And that means that we are relying on, logical encryption rather than physical separation. And the economic implications for scale and innovation at scale of that is pretty breathtaking. What it means is that we're not talking about physically building a structure full of compute that only the government uses, that the adversary can target, that is frozen in the moment that it's built in terms of the capability and capacity and features that it brings, and is only relying on the unit economics of the government consumer. And instead, we're moving to a space of utilizing the very best, zero trust, cybersecurity, Mandiant, all the Google brings to cybersecurity. You're leveraging all of that knowledge and prowess and know-how to give the government an experience that is as good as a commercial cloud, but as secure, or I would argue much more secure than the traditional GovCloud. So the first big change is software-defined GovCloud, and what that means in terms of being on the commercial curve. I think that's incredibly powerful. The other thing that is really interesting is that because we didn't want to have that sort of physical structure of a GovCloud, built in a warehouse, we didn't need to limit our certification to just what was in that building. So we actually made the decision to put our entire global infrastructure inside the IL5 boundary. So if you think about the capacity that we have at IL5 to run large AI models, it's all of Google, right? I don't want to say a number because the number might be wrong, but it's like dozens of times over the order of magnitude of what we can bring to the mission compared to organizations that spend billions of dollars building warehouses. And I think that is really powerful, and I think it changes what other SaaS companies can offer. It's a different vision, and I've had people from all other companies. I probably shouldn't say, but I won't name companies, but a lot of companies that have amazing SaaS applications we all use every day saying, wow, we thought this government market was closed off to us, and now you guys have pioneered a new way to offer certification. And so I think that is something we're incredibly, incredibly proud of, and we hope that it's going to offer the ability of the government to do things they haven't been able to do in the past, and really advance mission there.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. One thing I rail on a lot is, people talk about the economy of scale of cloud, but then they immediately jump to GovCloud, which is by almost definition a unit economy for government. It's, and it's problematic. It has not only financial implications, but all sorts of, that spans then into government acquisitions and acquisition strategies and all kinds of things that are really.
I like to say GovCloud is the off-ramp from the superhighway of progress.
Yeah. It's a great quote. We got to capture that.
But, it's just you peel away and then you're just in this parking lot of that's what you have. And then, the technical debt accumulates from there. And, it's not a Google thing. Everyone I know, all of these former public servants, military veterans, they all want the right thing. They're all they're all of these companies. They're Microsoft, Amazon. I mean, these are all great mission-driven companies, but they are stuck with the design choices that they made, and I wouldn't trade places with any of them today.
That's actually a good segue into one of the questions that's in chat here. You were talking about technical design, but there's another problem that a lot of times plagues government, which is organizational design. And Google is famously on the chart. I don't know if you've ever seen the diagram of the different cultures and how they manifest in organizations. And, there's Google and Microsoft and, of course, Oracle with all the lawyers. So the question was, how have you tackled Conway's Law, right? Which is essentially that an organization's tech stack is a reflection of how the team is organized. In the government innovation space, when you're trying to create transformation, you're almost working against their organization. How do you tackle that?
I mean, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I think for us, we're looking for the early adopters. This isn't true anymore, but in the beginning, our best customer was DIU in the beginning, right? And then we branched out and we built bigger and bigger businesses with the Air Force. And now, our Army Workspace deal is one of our biggest deals. But, we begin at the Army Software Factory, and we approach, the Army Futures Command, and we go, we love the Defense Digital Service. We love Kessel Run. We love AFWERX. We go to the places where, people are thinking differently about the mission, and we support them. And then from there, we sort of move in concentric circles outwards as we climb the innovation adoption curve, arm in arm with the government leaders. One of the most inspiring conversations we've had has always been with Space Force, because if I was question on Conway's Law, they are every day they're waking up and being how do we be different? We have a once in a generation, frankly, once in a 3 generation opportunity to create a new service, and we want to do it differently. So as a result, Google engineers are lying awake at night being what could we do for Space Force? I'm interviewing the chief human capital officer of Space Force in one of our coffee chats, because the way they think about their digital workforce, I think, is really inspiring for us and how we even think about ours. They have incredible ideas about that. So we try to go there, and look, I'm very pleased to tell you that it was DISA that pioneered our approach to IL5. They were the ones that were embracing new ways of getting to IL5, and I think General Skinner is amazing. Right. So some of the things that were true 5 years ago about where you find the innovators aren't as true today. With Army Workspace, right? It was the Army CIO that was pushing the envelope, or the way some of the decisions about JWCC was made was that it's DISA's pushing the envelope. So you got to update your priors and give everyone a chance to reinvent themselves and follow them there. And so now there are places where a few years ago, you might have expected them to be the innovation leaders. Maybe they're not anymore. Maybe now there's new folks that want to drive. And my commitment is anywhere there's a public servant that wants to push an envelope, Google should be there for them to help them do that.
I love that. I think, I've been really impressed, speaking of DISA. I'm not sure if you've worked with the Hack at all, or if that was who was involved, but the Hosting and Compute Center, just one of the most forward leaning organizations in government, in my opinion, and it's situated right smack dab in the middle of DISA. So it is a good reminder to never write people off, right? I had my own frustrations with DISA during my time at KR, and now they're leading the way.
Absolutely. And the tone gets set from the top, and never underestimate the power of a person that wants to make a difference. And if they're convinced it's secure and that their responsibilities have been met and they see a chance to lean in, they'll do it. And by the way, all of our conversations are 3 and 4 stars, or with SES, all of the senior leader conversations, for the most part, they want to drive digital transformation. The leadership support is there, much more than people realize. And then there's obviously a lot of people in the rank and file that also get it. So I think a lot of what we try to do is help people understand that, what is risky and what is not risky, right? There's a lot of things that are perceived as risky that in fact are not. And if we can bring some technical expertise that is credible and trustworthy to show some of these things are in fact not risky, then we try to do that. And in fact, I make the counter argument, which is a lot of things that are perceived as being a safe way to go are really just excuses for accepting technical debt that's very risky. Like a lot of the things in cybersecurity that are perceived as being, oh, like, well, I follow the checklist. I'm like, you're very much at risk right now, sir, ma'am. Like you are actually, your data is in danger exposed, right? And so there's a lot of things where I say, following the letter of the law may not actually make you safer. And, there's a lot of stuff like, well, compute is a commodity now. I'm like, well, not really. Some clouds have over 200 known vulnerabilities and some have 6. So like, maybe it's not all the same. Some, so you say like, oh, well, like I'm using the cloud that everybody uses. So like, I'm not taking a risk here. I'm like, I don't know, like read some headlines. Like actually there's a lot of risk that may be baked into doing something that other people are doing. You gotta take responsibility for doing your homework and knowing what you're getting yourself into or what you need to get yourself out of.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we have one more question from LinkedIn here from Nate. Question is, do you think the government perception of AI and its capabilities will change as they realize how prevalent it is in their lives right now?
I am counting on that. I mean, I am on your show trying to help accomplish that. I mean, Nate is right about that. I mean, we have to help. We have to help people, on that journey because they have to make it safe. And there's a really, really big difference between, making sure that, that the AI chatbot in your contact center can speak 100 languages so you can serve all your citizens is a machine learning problem. Self-driving cars is also a machine learning problem. They should not be treated the same, right? Autonomous vehicles on our, for our school buses for our children is not the same level of risk as automating workflow that helps people, get their benefits faster, right? And so, computer vision, natural language processing, Doc AI, Geo AI, like all of those things is AI, but we should be adopting those things as fast as we possibly can. That's not the same thing as other more experimental techniques, more complicated things that have other implications. I mean, we've got to be nuanced in terms of what we lump together in this dangerous category of machine learning. I mean, for one thing, we could take so many of these machine learning applications and just call them software and not even label them AI, and then like maybe we wouldn't have so much trouble adopting them. I mean, some of these labels are not helpful. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
definitely. I think software is still a tough label.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean,
we just call it hardware.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. Like if you put it in a Belson box, it's much easier to acquire. But people want mission outcomes. Like maybe that's what we do. Maybe we stop calling it AI tools and we just say, look, I'm not offering you a hardware box. I'm not offering you a software application. I'm offering you a mission outcome. And by the way, something is really innovative, and this is not what you expect in a tech conversation. Maybe the most innovative thing Google Public Sector has done is we offer this thing called a subscription agreement, which takes all the guesswork out of your cloud spend, because that's how government buys. You have to have a budget 5 years in advance. So we offer a firm fixed price for a mission outcome, right? So if you have bursty workloads and your compute goes above or below, like we don't pass the fee on for that. Like I think subscription agreements is an example of something that's actually very user-centered, because that's how government budgets, right? They don't want to have a runaway cloud spend because there's an unexpected workload. So we offer a package and be like, this is what you want to do. This is how much compute we think you need. This is how much data we think you have. This is a risk-adjusted price for it. This is the max you'll pay for a year. And then you can POM for that, believe it or not. Can you imagine being able to like effortlessly put in your PB proposal for the next 3 years a fixed price that won't go up for being able to use these resources? I mean, so we think when government workers like start to learn some of these techniques, they'll see that we're really trying to make it easier to get to these machine learning driven outcomes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope for audience members and folks that watch this later, I think Google is really doing some pioneering work here, both as you said, how it's bought and procured, but also in how you implemented your tech stack. So I'm super impressed. I think there is a second mover's advantage for sure. I'm deep in the compliance space, and so the way that IL4 and IL5 has been implemented by various vendors is difficult. I mean, it creates problematic user experiences. So hope folks take a look at Google Cloud Platform. We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but also doing some really incredible stuff with edge computing. I think as we bring capabilities like Anthos to the forefront in combination with Edge and that Google Cloud, logical segregation, it unlocks some incredible capabilities. So don't necessarily go with it, who's got market share today and what everybody else is doing. I hope folks take a real close look at Google. I'm a Google workspacer, so I feel you there too. And I think when you integrate all those capabilities, it's pretty magical. Josh, thanks for joining us today. Are there any final comments you have?
I just want to congratulate you, Brian. I mean, I love the community that you have been building since you were in the uniform and now as a CEO. I think you're just pushing for great products that, accomplish the mission and delight the users. And I think it's an example for everyone. I mean, I really look up to you and what you've built and how you do what you do. And that's why I love talking to you, usually privately, but, we could do it on LinkedIn once too. And I think you have an incredible vision of what this community should look like. And it's just a privilege to play a small part in helping you make it real.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm always honored to be with you. And for folks that want to be a part of the community, definitely check out Prodacity. Like I said, we had Josh speak last year. Hopefully we get him again this year. We'll see.
You have smarter people to hear from. I've said what I have to say, but we should find someone else from Google that could offer a double click into some of the technology that the developers in your conference want to do, and I'll help you find someone a lot smarter than I am with something new to say.
Fair enough. All right. Well, head over to the Rise8 website to check out Prodacity, and Josh, you can follow him on LinkedIn. And thank you so much, Josh. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Josh.
Take care.